We've all been there, silently grumbling that our team isn't performing. Or my favorite line I've heard from one of my frustrated clients was, "Why can't they just do their job?" Well, that is exactly what I want to dig into today, sharing with you how you can improve the way you lead your team, create more leaders within your team, which means more autonomy for them and you, and saving the best for last, the reason why those grumbles happen in the first place, and how to prevent them in the future. Welcome back to the Biz Doctor podcast. I'm your host, Lauren Goldstein, and it stands to reason that most of us business owners started our business because we wanted to solve a problem and be free from the corporate shackles. But what most of us found out is we traded one set of shackles for another that followed us home, disrespected boundaries, and at times made us hate our business, running our businesses. So now that you have a business that's working, profitable, and you find yourself maxed out, it's time to create leverage. And that leverage is created in a few ways, two of which I'm going to talk about now, your team and your time. In fact, as Dan Martell says, 80% done by someone else is 100% awesome. And the right team will allow you to not only buy back your time, but multiply it in ways that create more freedom than you might possibly think. So how do we free you? How do we create a more autonomous and successful team that you actually enjoy leading? Here we go. Step into my office. The first key to autonomy is remembering that your number one job as a leader is creating other leaders. This means that you no longer get to look at yourself as the savior of the team and stop enabling them. Sorry if that one stung, but I've seen it time and time again. The thing that is truly keeping you stuck, buried. The bottleneck is you, and your inability to let other people solve problems on their own or as a team. Or worse, delegating and then taking back that thing or project, breaking trust and confidence with the team. Now let me tell you a little story to illustrate this. I was fractional COO for an almost $70 million company. It was the CFO, the CEO, and me in a Slack group. And the CEO was grumbling about something, and we were all talking. And finally he said, "Oh, just forget it. Just send it to me and I'll do it." And it was something having to do with the team that was definitely not his job. And the CFO, I will never forget this. It was so great. He goes, "Oh, I get it. So if I just send you my work that I don't want to do, you'll do it?" And the funny thing is, for weeks, I had been telling this particular CEO that he needed to stop jumping in and doing things for the team that really weren't his job just because it was quote unquote quicker. And in that moment, when the CFO said that to him, I saw the light just click on. And he goes, "Oh my gosh, you're right. I am enabling them." Why I love this story is because it's so relatable. I don't think any one of us have ever not been in a situation where we were just like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm just going to do this. I'm tired of them asking me all these questions. I'm just going to do it. And doing that once or twice, sure, I'll give you that. But if it's something that's continually happening and becoming a pattern, not only are you robbing your team of a chance to actually get a skill and problem solve and build that confidence, but you're robbing yourself of precious time that you're never going to get back, time that you should be spending on things that actually move the business forward. So hopefully you can see with this story why not enabling your team anymore is the first key step to getting you unburied. Now, I'm not just going to leave you hanging with a story. I'm going to give you my top 2 favorite ways to start creating more independence and confidence in your team. And with it, of course, as I've already said, that will create more autonomy for them and in turn you. So the first is the rule of 3. I love this rule. It might sound a little cold when I explain it, but trust me, in every single company that has implemented this, when I've consulted with them, they've come back and said, this was hands down one of the best things we could have done. So here it goes. The rule of 3 is very simple. You can come to senior management or your manager with a question only after you have done all of these 3 things. You have Googled it, or in today's AI landscape, ChatGPT'd it. And honestly, guys, as a complete sidebar here, if you are not using ChatGPT, get on that, because that is another really powerful way to create leverage as well. And honestly, it's pretty fun. I'm really enjoying it. I think we're in a real and committed relationship, so give it a go. The second, ask a teammate. I think that a lot of times, especially in the remote landscape that we're in, sometimes we've forgotten about collaboration and just asking someone on the team. And then the third is check an internal resource, SOP, or knowledge base. And this one, I think, is also something that gets easily forgotten. I mean, we spend a ton of time creating SOPs, and we don't create them just for ourselves. Like, the whole idea is that with these processes and resources and knowledge bases, that other people can run the company if you are on vacation. That's the idea, right? So if you're not reminding them to go use those resources, then they just become another resource that's sitting on the shelf gathering dust. Once they've gone through all three of those and they still can't find the answer, then they get to come to me. But when they come to me, this is the most important question you can ask them. Ready? Lean in close. What do you think we should do? Now, I'm sure you're like, are you kidding? That's the question. But here's why this is so important. What you're doing with both of these things is you're conditioning them to come to you with not just problems for you to solve, but solutions. Because if you always ask them what they think we should do, they're going to start saying, oh, I better have some answer. Because the first time that they look at me and say, I don't know, what do you think we should do? I'm not going to be too pleased. Because yes, there are certain, I would say maybe less than 1% of things in the business that only I know the answer to, or I can only solve. And sometimes it really just comes down to an access thing. I'm the only one that has access to it. But for everything else, I expect you to have thought of some way to solve whatever problem we're trying to overcome. Why I truly love this is it gives also me a different perspective on the problem, which gives us a greater chance of solving the problem. But it also creates camaraderie and the sense of we're in this together. It's not just you doing your thing and me doing my thing. We're really working towards solutions together. And like my story I shared before, sure, it might seem easier and faster in the short term to answer a question thrown your way, but long term, if you want to be able to step away, and if you ever want to sell your business or take a vacation without worry, you have to develop their critical thinking, build that trust and their confidence. And those two key tactics that I just gave you, the rule of 3 and the most important question I ever ask, those are the cornerstones to critically think, build trust, and confidence. Now, I think it's really important to say this one thing. There is a really big difference between saving and supporting. If you're constantly answering questions for your team or not letting them fall down and skin their knees, then you're actually robbing them of a lot of growth. Because our number one job as leaders is to create other leaders. And good leaders are not only empathetic and emotionally intelligent, but they're resilient. And the way that you build resilience is by failing fast, falling down and getting up. And I know that kind of sucks because you're like, but it's my business. I want to protect my business. I don't want them to make mistakes. Yeah, I get it. I did a whole podcast episode on how to deal with employee mistakes. So go back and listen to that. But at the end of the day, think of your business a little bit like a kid. Like, you're not going to put them in bubble wrap, or at least I hope you're not. You're not going to put them in bubble wrap and never let them experience life. No, that's not how it works. Sometimes you got to screw things up. And you know what? I got to say, those times when I made mistakes in my business, I hated it. I hated it because, I'm a recovering perfectionist, high achiever. I don't like making mistakes. But you know what? I learned a lot from them. And I also learned how to not make the same mistake twice. I was talking to my performance coach this morning at the gym. We were talking about how in this particular moment, I'm a little under the weather and not feeling so well. And I said, God, I hate being weak. And he's like, everybody has off days. Everybody misses shots. And then we got talking about Kobe Bryant, who I love. And I don't know if you guys know this, but Kobe actually holds the record for most missed shots. And of course, Wayne Gretzky says you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So take that as permission to let your team fail and figure things out. It'll actually free you up a lot, and you'll see the greatness bubble in them. And again, to go back, our number one job as leaders is to create other leaders. So as much as this may trigger you, when the student becomes the master, you know you've done your job. Okay, key number 2. Proactively hiring and getting really clear on who you truly need. This is why clarity is the first of my 7 C's of a high-performing business and team, because without it, it's truly the blind leading the blind. More than that, if you haven't actually thought through things like what the actual problem in the business that this person is solving, how they fit in the business, their metrics for success, the mission of the role, among other key questions that I have on our Golden Key scorecard, then you are setting them and you up for failure. Without this clarity around the role, you might as well be taking your money and lighting it on fire. And this is why I said thinking about who you truly need. Because sometimes you think you know who you need, but then when you sit down and do the scorecard, you actually are presented with so much clarity. And I can't tell you how many times I've sat down with a client and done a scorecard and they said they needed X, and then we found out that X is actually 2 separate jobs, or the problem that they thought they needed solving once we dug in was actually something totally different. And we went and hired someone completely different than when we started and what they initially thought. And it turned out way better. And I think that that's a really important moment of reflection in what I just said. You will spend so much less time, money, and frustration if you take a breath and proactively hire by getting clear. Most people think that their team is failing because they aren't capable, when in reality, more often than not, you haven't been clear. And because of that, you've doomed them from the start. I know if you've been listening for a while, I say this a lot, but I'm going to say it again. Unshared expectations are nothing more than premeditated resentments. So the way to fix this is to sit down before you hire and get crystal clear. Our Golden Key scorecard is a paint by numbers way to do that. And the great news is if you already have a team, it works perfectly to recenter, refocus, and support your current team with clarity and direction. It's really hard to get where you want to go if everyone is paddling in different directions, which is why clarity and thinking through what you truly need will set you worlds apart from other business owners and get you out of the weeds faster. Plus, you'll save a lot of time and money this way too, as I said, which is a win-win. Because I don't know if you know this, but I think the number something like $14,000 or $15,000 is lost with every bad hire. So truly, you have nothing to lose except wasting money and time by sitting down and proactively thinking through your team, who you need to hire, who you already have, how they're all fitting together as puzzle pieces. And the great part about this truly is that if you're clear and they're clear, then they also stop spinning their wheels and they suddenly become much more efficient, which is so helpful for profitability. Plus, in addition to profitabilities, which I'm going to talk about in my last part, truly the best for last, your team will stop being an expense and start being an asset that not only pays dividends in time, but profit on the bottom line. Now, one quick thing before I reveal this last concept that will have you never looking at your team the same again. Thanks for sticking around. Before we dive into the next bit, I want to take a second to share with you something that I've seen drastically change businesses and teams for the better.
Imagine waking up every morning with a team that knows exactly what is expected of them and how to achieve success without you having to micromanage them. Imagine how much time and dollars you will save by hiring the right team member from the start. Not to mention getting the most out of every current member of your team. That is what's possible with our tried and tested tool, the Golden Key Scorecard. The scorecard is a simple, impactful, and fillable tool for managing your team, ditching inefficiency, and I guarantee will help you stop playing whack-a-mole chasing team docs all over the place. It's as easy as filling out a form. If you want to get out from under your business, shifting from business operator to business owner, and take your business to the next level while reclaiming your time, then our Golden Key Scorecard is just the ticket. Our scorecard provides the time-tested framework and process to get you and your team out of the weeds and into a well-oiled machine that can scale without you. It's time for you to run your business instead of the other way around. Become an expert in this critical piece of the foundation to creating a high-performing team. Download the Golden Key Scorecard for free at goldenkeypartnership.com/go. Now back to the show.
Now, as promised, the best for last. This is hands down my favorite concept to teach and consult on because once you understand it, you will never look at your team or hiring the same way again. Plus, you'll start really loving playing on the field with your team instead of feeling like you're crawling through the mud of micromanagement. You ready? Players versus worker bees. Okay, let me define both of them. So worker bees tend to be very task-oriented, generalists, they lack critical thinking, are rarely self-motivated, thrive in repetitive, non-technical roles, suck time and energy, and are a sunk cost on the bottom line. The bottom line of this is these types generally have you doing two jobs at once, yours and trying to think of things for them to do. Trust me, I can hear you groaning on the other side that you know when you have one of these people on your team, especially when you're managing them, which we will talk about in a second. Now, players, on the other hand, they are project and goal-oriented. They are self-centered. They are an expert in what I like to call their 5 acres. They come with a plan, they create time, they generate profits, and they make working with them fun and easy. Having players will allow you to have the leanest and most effective team, which is why I wanted to talk about this. Truly, you will know when you come across a player in a worker bee, you'll know exactly which is which because one will annoy you and one will be fun to play with. So when it comes to teams and high-performing teams especially, now worker bees are essential, absolutely essential. I'm not saying you should never have a worker bee, but I repeat, cannot emphasize this enough. They may not be managed by you. Worker bees, again, are essential, but they cannot be managed by you. Otherwise, you will be forever stuck in what I shared before about doing two people's jobs, your job and thinking of things for them to do. Now, in the perfect world, if you could have it all of your way, the best, leanest, most profitable businesses have a front line of players backed up by a second string of worker bees. So everyone that reports to you in theory should be a player. Now, a player doesn't have to be a manager. This is something also that I talk about a lot with my clients. Just because they're a player doesn't mean they get to manage people or they want to manage people. A lot of times players are individual contributors that are kicking ass. So just because you have somebody who's kicking ass, don't go stick them in a management role unless you've asked them the 3 questions, which I kind of want to save for another episode, but I'll close the loop really quick. And actually, I did a whole podcast on how to internally promote the right way. So maybe just go listen to that. But the long and the short of it is, before you promote anyone, they have to answer yes to these 3 questions. Do you know what you need to do to be successful in your role? Do you know what someone else needs to do to be successful in their role? Do you feel comfortable and want to tell someone else what to do to be successful in their role? If at any point they answer no to those, don't promote them. Now, back to players versus worker bees. When it comes to players, and you're interviewing, or you just want to know if you have a player or a worker bee on your team, ask them this question. Hey, I've set X goal for this quarter. What would be your plan to get there? Now, worker bees generally will look at you like a deer in the headlights and kind of say, well, whatever you need me to do, I'm here to support. Whereas a player will look at you like you just gave them a present on Christmas, and they will say something like, oh my gosh, I have so many great ideas on how to do this. My plan would be something like this. Or, when I did this before, this is what we did and it worked really well, but I change it this time. And then they start listing out the possibilities of how to accomplish the goal. And I think that players oftentimes aren't seen the way that you and I would like to see them sometimes because we're so used to being slogged around by worker bees. So it's really important to bring it full circle here for you. It's really important to create the autonomy and confidence and trust and leadership, because when you do that, your players are going to be even more obvious because you're not trying to micromanage anyone. And I think that that might be the whole purpose of this podcast episode, is mastering the art of letting go without losing control. Here's a great suggestion from my friend here in Austin Netzley. He's the author of From 6 to 7 Figures, the proven playbook to get more traction, free up 20 hours per week, and scale past 1 million in revenue, plus the 2-week vacation test. And he and I have chatted a lot about businesses and teams and ops and efficiency and profitability, but a lot about teams and VAs. And his philosophy, which I really love and have adopted, is having a VA for every department. So, he talks about how he has 3 assistants. He has an EA, a house assistant, and then VAs. And why I really love this is because and actually, I'm going to digress for a minute, but it will make sense. I talk a lot about with my clients how different personality types we happen to use, team dynamics, the test we use for our clients and our teams. But if you don't understand how that personality works, sometimes we really set our team up for failure and don't even know it. So a great example I'm going to give you is a sales team. It always seems to be a fight for the sales team to fill out the CRM. And everybody's like, can you just give us notes and all of that? Well, I'm here to tell you that they're probably never going to do that. They don't like spreadsheets. They don't like software. They care about people and relationships. And, some of $1 million deals have been made with scratching on the back of a napkin. So what I often suggest, which is what Austin is getting to here, is that your salespeople should have assistants, the people that come up behind them and broom up the crumbs, make sure that everything's organized. Because you have people who are great starters, great ideators, but they're not great finishers. Or you have finishers who are not very creative. And so getting to know your team and understanding how they work and what's most supportive for them is going to be very supportive for you in creating that autonomy. So if we go back to having a VA for every department for the very repetitive admin tasks that happen every day or week or month, what that's going to do is free up your players even more. And if you were listening to what I said earlier, players create profit. Worker bees, if they're not used properly, are just an expense. So if players are creating profit and profit is then allowing you to buy back your time and multiply time, then wouldn't you want to free up your players more? I think that that's a really good question to ask yourself. How can you better utilize your worker bees if you have them and free up your players so that they can free up you? So give those tactics a try, and I promise your team, your business, and your inner burned out overachiever will thank you. And also let me know how they go. If there's one that's particularly struck a chord, I'd love to hear. All right, guys, I know you're sad. I'm sad too, but that is it for this week's episode. Thank you so much for listening in and sticking with me to the end. If anything I shared sparked something in you, I would love for you to share this episode with your friends or other business owners. And of course, rate and review our show so it shows up to more people who need to hear it. I'd also so enjoy hearing from you and what your golden nuggets or takeaways were, so let's connect. Tag or DM me on Instagram at It's Lauren Goldstein or LinkedIn or wherever you hang out on the interwebs. Lastly, don't forget to subscribe so you're the first to get notified when our next episode is live and ready for your ears. Thanks so much for listening. Until next time.
Thank you for listening to the Biz Doctor podcast. Now, I like to say that friends don't let friends WebMD your business. So if you're wondering what your next steps could be, here are some options for you. No matter what, head to the show notes or to my website, goldenkeypartnership.com, for some impactful resources to support you getting out from under your business. That's also where you'll find the links to learn more about our services and how we support business owners, just like you, who are ready to make the successful jump from business operator in the trenches to visionary business owner with more freedom and flexibility. All of that info is on our website, so pop on over to learn more or get in touch. goldenkeypartnership.com. Finally, if you love the Biz Doctor podcast, I'd be so grateful if you would share it with your friends and network and give us a 5-star rating or review wherever you listen to your podcast.
This is Story Studio Network.